Or
Well,
was
it
she?
looks like we can get started. Of course, this is recorded for folks coming in later. And Debbie, you'll watch for folks. And this is, I have to be pretty aggressive here because there's 96 slides. That's about 2 slides a minute. Some slides will take longer than others. So we took the trip to South Africa in 2015, as it says. And in this presentation, I put in sightseeing around South Africa, some quizzes, facts about South African religions and Presbyterianism, facts about Moses Mabhida. I think I'm pronouncing that fairly well, and the stadium named after him. Most folks, I guess, in America had never heard of him. Facts about African animals, facts about Nelson Mandela and the prison on Robben Island, facts on apartheid, the Kirstenbosch Botanical Gardens near Cape Town, and scenes from high atop Table Mountain. And this is, we took a limousine right from our house, which was nice, to Newark Airport, which is nice. You didn't have to worry about driving. We were chauffeured the whole way. So this is at our house. And you can see we were pretty fully packed there.
Wow.
And we went through London. So we had a 13-hour layover in London. So we got to walk around London a little bit on our way to South Africa, which was a nice little diversion. Makeups of religions in South Africa. About 81% of the country is Christian. The Pew Research Center estimates 84% of the Christian population is Protestant, 11% Roman Catholic, 5% other denominations. African independent churches constitute the largest group of Christian churches, including the Zion Christian Church, approximately 11%, the Apostolic Church, approximately 10%, and a number of Pentecostal and charismatic groups. Other Christian groups include Methodists, Anglicans, Baptists, Lutherans, got to get Presbyterians in there, Seventh-day Adventist, and members of the Greek Orthodox, Dutch Reformed, and the Church of Jesus Christ and the Latter-day Saints, Assemblies of God, and Congregational churches. So they have a large makeup of religions.
I think you hit just about everything I've ever heard of.
Yeah, there you go. That's, yeah, true. Other South African religions, approximately 15% of the population adheres to no particular religion or declines to indicate an affiliation. Some of these individuals likely adhere to indigenous beliefs. Muslims constitute 1.7% of the population, of whom the great majority are Sunni. Shia religious leaders estimate that not more than 3% of the Muslim population is Shia. Hindus, Jews, Buddhists, and adherents to traditional indigenous beliefs together constitute less than 4% of the population. Many indigenous persons adhere to a belief system combining Christian and indigenous religious practices. The Church of Scientology estimates it has approximately 100,000 members. The Presbyterian Church in South Africa has 9 presbyteries. The church membership is 3,400,000 with 9,000 congregations and 600 house fellowships. The denomination affirms the Apostles' Creed and Westminster Confession of Faith. It is a member of the World Communion of Reformed Churches. And this is just one of the Presbyterian churches in South Africa. When we got in from the airport, this is a hotel we stayed at, and out those windows, you can, we were right by the Indian Ocean, so it was very scenic. And this is the view that we have basically of the Indian Ocean. We're just above that on a hill. And there was like 20 freighters lined up to get into Durban. We're just north of Durban. They can get one through at a time, and they were just backed up, and there's freighter after freighter out in the ocean. Now this is the Moses Mabhida Stadium, and I'm probably butchering that a little bit. It's a very neat looking building, and of course that's the ocean in the background. The stadium's named after a giant of a man, Moses Mahiki McCain Mabhida, who was one of those who helped to forge and maintain the powerful united front that eventually saw the creation of a democratic and non-racial South Africa. Its design allows for natural ventilation and creates an incredible sense of space, every bit as striking as the stadium's famous arch, if you remember that arch in the top. The shape of the iconic arch was inspired by the Y shape on the South African flag. The 350-meter long free-span steel arch weighs 2,600 tons. The Grand Center Arch, 106 meters high, is not just a design feature. The Sky Car takes visitors up to its highest point where they can get out and enjoy breathtaking panoramic views of the city and the ocean. The usual stadium seating capacity is 56,000, which can be upscaled to 85,000 for major events such as the Olympic Games. Which of these political parties did Moses Mabhida serve in? These are all political parties that are currently in South Africa. You can pick A, B, C, or D. Most people won't have any idea, so you can take a guess at it. Nationalist Party, African Christian Democratic Party, Inkatha Freedom Party, South African Communist Party. Again, they're all parties in South Africa. So pick one and then we'll see if you're right.
C.
Yeah, I was picking C too.
The South African Communist Party is the answer to that. We'll talk a little bit about that later. Profile of the man. He lived from 1923 to 1986 through determination to make significant difference in the quality of life of the working class. Moses, I'm just going to say Moses, has served the working people through his various positions within the African National Congress, Communist Party, and the South African Congress of Trade Unions. The commitment to change in labor practices took on new momentum after the Defiance campaign in 1952, when he started working full-time for the trade union movement. Rising through the lowest ranks of the ANC to become commander of the People's Army, Mabhida fiercely fought against oppression by defying all attempts to turn the trade unions into appendages of the property-owning classes. He served the Communist Party first as a member and later as general secretary, while serving as vice president of the union. Mabhida has become a legend in narratives of South African working class struggles. You'll see he's a lot like Nelson Mandela in thought. And that was a restaurant we ate at. Was kind of cool. It's out in the water. It was a nice scenic view while you're eating. This is still near Durban. And then we were in Durban at nighttime. This was a revolving restaurant. As it revolved around, we could see the cityscape, which is cool. We went to a place called the Prawn Shack, which was a trip up the North Coast. It was close to the ocean. And it was a place basically very rustic for folks to sort of chill out, relax, have a drink, and then we walked down to the ocean. And like I said, a little bit of it's just a name about the prawn, and we're going to see a little bit about what a prawn is if you don't know. And I said Prawn Shack humor. This is a sign hanging in there. And these are prawns, a plate of prawns from the Prawn Shack. They look like shrimp.
Mm-hmm.
But prawns versus shrimp. Prawns have branching gills, claws of 3 pairs of their legs, and second pincers that are larger than the front ones. Additionally, prawns lack the distinct bend in their bodies that is seen with shrimp, and each of their body segments overlaps the one behind it in succession. Shrimp, on the other hand, have plate-like gills and claws on 2 pairs of their legs. Their front pincers are typically their largest. Additionally, shrimp have a distinct bend in their bodies, and their second segments overlap the first and third segments. In terms of aquaculture and farming, shrimp are marine creatures, while prawns live strictly in fresh water. These classifications apply specifically to the most commonly farmed race varieties, including the giant tiger prawn and the white-legged shrimp. If you never had a prawn, basically they taste pretty much like shrimp taste. And we were walking down to the ocean from the Prawn Shack, and this is a typical scenery along the road. And this is down at the ocean. We had one gal that was sort of going out with a riptide, and our more experienced swimmers went in after. But this kid over here with the surfboard, he swam down. He was going to help rescue this girl. But by the time he got there, we had taken care of the situation. But it was pretty impressive that this kid looked like he's no more than 12 or 13 years old. He was coming down just to help us out.
She won't come if she doesn't know.
And a couple kids along the way as we walked back to the prawn shack. They're saying hello to us.
Find out if she wants to go, and then
we went to a game reserve, Bonamonzi, and this was the hut that we stayed in. Heidi and I stayed in. They had these huts dotted all over the game reserve. And then other people in our group stayed in tree houses. What is the most dangerous animal to humans in Africa? You can take a guess at that, and a little later come up with the answer. The most dangerous animal to humans in Africa. And we caught a water monitor on our way to one of the safaris. It says here water monitors are second in size to the Nile crocodile, including tail. Large adults can reach lengths up to 2.5 meters, which is lower 8 feet. Its body is adorned with beautiful yellow patterning, aiding it is to be well camouflaged in its preferred habitat. So these are basically large lizards, and they can climb trees, and they're found, their range is found all over southern Africa. And then we're on a walking safari here. We could walk up pretty close to the giraffes. And this is one particularly photogenic guy. These are all pictures, by the way, by Heidi. I had the video camera, she had this camera. African giraffe is 16 to 19 feet tall, weighs up to 2,800 pounds. Males are larger than females. Males have big horns compared to the females, and they are also bald. Although giraffes are extremely tall, they are able to run as fast as 35 miles per hour. They maintain the speed in short bursts. Giraffes are one of the animals that possess remarkable sense of hearing, smell, and taste. Because of this, giraffes can smell predators when they are miles away. The weight of a giraffe's heart is 25 pounds. Then we came upon some Cape water buffalo, and our guide told us to stand in a straight line because they can't see too well. If we gathered in a group, they would be threatened by the size of what they see. So if we stayed in a straight line, we wouldn't look as threatening to them. And the horns of a Cape buffalo are excellent indication of age and gender. The females and young males do not have hard shielding that protects the base of the skull, and large adult males. Cape buffaloes are extremely social and live in large mixed herds up to 2,000 members. The African buffalo, which is often confused with the Asian water buffalo, shares many of the same characteristics, but is considered a separate species. Cape buffaloes are always within a day's walk of the water source, especially during the dry season when they are eating dried grasses. Cape buffaloes have the reputation of being dangerous when they are cornered or injured. There are many tales told by big game hunters early this century of injured buffalo turning back and goring or killing the shooter. We ran across rhinoceros. Now we're in this is a different day, a different safari where we're in a truck. There are 5 species of rhinos, 3 of which are critically endangered. Rhinos' horns are made of same substances, hair and fingernails. They communicate with sounds. They're fast. They're massive. They have thick but sensitive skin. They're ancient. Oxpeckers are a rhino's best friend. There's those little birds that travel around on their backs. Rhinos have a strong sense of smell and hearing, but poor eyesight. A group of rhinos is called a crack. And then we ran across the elephants. And again, we're in the truck, but they're walking all around us. And this guy looked like we were threatening him. He was sort of waving back and forth, like, it looked to me like he might charge us. But I think our truck was probably a little faster than him. Elephants are smart, emotional, self-aware, and highly social creatures. As well as being the largest land mammal on Earth, elephants are a keystone species and play an important role in the environment where they live. However, having roamed the wild for 50 million years, today this iconic species faces the biggest threats to its survival due to ivory poaching, human-wildlife conflict, and habitat destruction. Elephants can live up to 70 years old. Population is estimated between 400,000, 415,000. And savanna elephants are endangered, and critically endangered are the forest elephants. And finally on this story, ran across zebras. 3 species of zebras. The greavy zebra is the largest and rarest of the 3 species. Zebras are wild animals that cannot be domesticated. A group of zebras called a dazzle. Zebras can travel long distances. Zebras are black animals with white stripes. Then we had a boat safari. There was 2, our group was split into 2. So I'm showing the picture of the other boat as we were on a boat safari. Saw crocodiles, and they average up to 16 foot in length. They weigh approximately 500 pounds. 70% of their diet is fish. The female can lay 25 to 100 eggs. They average approximately 45 years of lifespan in the wild. They may live up to 80 years in captivity, found throughout tropical and southern Africa and Madagascar. And then we had the hippopotamus, and it was funny. They were like whack-a-moles. They kept putting their heads up, going under, putting their heads up, going under, a whole bunch of them. And they can't swim or float. They walk or stand on surfaces below the water. They can hold their breath for about 7 minutes. Open mouth is not a yawn, but but rather a sign to warn you off. You will only see hippos yawning while in the water because they are only territorial while in the water. Hippo can live up to 40 years. Hippos usually come out of the water for 4 or 5 hours at night, graze, and can cover up to 10 kilometers at that time. Their diets consist of grass, and they graze using muscular lips. The hippo is considered one of the most dangerous animals in Africa, and it's highly aggressive, particularly if you get between it and the water. Their canine teeth are sharp and are used for fighting. So if you guessed that hippos are the most dangerous terrestrial animal in Africa, you'd be correct. They kill about 3,000 humans per year. The puffed adder and the mosquito surpass that statistic because they're wide distribution throughout the continent. So I'll give you credit for any of those 3 answers. And we saw a Zulu dance at a Zulu village one night. And this is what the Zulu hut looks like 3 years prior to when we were there. Actually says that up there. It was an active village in 2012. But now it's more or less a touristy spot where you can walk through their village. And this is where they held the dance at night. And one of the gals in our group said, "There's something inside this pot over here." And then the guy turned the pot over, and out came a scorpion. Then we went down to Cape Town and stayed at this nice house for free because it belonged to somebody in our group. And the dogs and the cats stayed with us. Dogs enjoying the pool and the cats enjoying the kitchen. How many Presbyterian churches are in Cape Town? Take a stab at a number. In the town, Cape Town, how many Presbyterian churches?
65.
How about 19?
Oh.
Nice guess. I know it's a pure guess, and this is, of course, a map of where those Presbyterian churches are. This is downtown Cape Town, and you looking back at the Ferris wheel in Table Mountain, which at the end of the presentation will be up on Table Mountain. A really neat scenery down in this area. And now we're going out to Robben Island, which is where Nelson Mandela was imprisoned. Apartheid, racial segregation had long existed in the white minority government governed South Africa, but the practice was extended under the government led by the National Party in 1948 to 1994. And the party named its racial segregation policies apartheid Afrikaner for apartness. The Population Registration Act of 1950 classified South Africans as Bantu, colored, or white, and they added Asian later. Other apartheid acts dictated where South Africans, on the basis of their racial classification, could live and work, the type of education they could receive, whether they could vote, who they could associate with, and which segregated public facilities they could use. And notice that that happened up to 1994, so that was up to fairly recently. By us old folks, 1994 wasn't that long ago.
That's true.
Apartheid ended under the administration of the South African president, F.W. de Klerk. Legislation supporting apartheid was repealed in the early 1990s, and the new constitution, one that enfranchised blacks and other racial groups, was adopted in 1993. All race national elections held in 1994 resulted in a black majority government led by prominent anti-apartheid activist Nelson Mandela of the African National Congress Party. Although these developments marked the end of legislated apartheid, the social and economic effects of apartheid remain deeply entrenched in South African society. And we're just taking that. They have a postcard we could stand in and see Table Mountain in the background. This is still on Robben Island. This is the outside of the cell that Nelson Mandela stayed in, and he's pointing to that. And all the guides on Robben Island are all former prisoners. This guy was also a former prisoner. And that's the inside of where Nelson Mandela was in prison. And that cell is not big. It's not much bigger than what you see there. Notice the bed on the floor, laying on the floor. Nelson Mandela, birth name was, and I'm not going to pronounce that. His primary school teacher gave him the name Nelson. He began his long road to college degree at the University College of Fort Hare in 1931. He was expelled for participating in a protest against the university's policy. Mandela eventually received his law degree from the University of South Africa in 1989. During the last month of his imprisonment, he also received an honorary degrees from more than 50 universities. After leaving the University College of Fort Hare, the king of his village threatened him and his cousin with arranged marriages. They both ran away to Johannesburg to avoid the marriages. He, along with fellow ANC member Oliver Tambo, established South Africa's first black law practice in 1952. His practice primarily worked in challenging apartheid laws, including South Africa's pass law, which required non-white citizens to carry documents authorizing their presence in restricted areas. In order to leave the country, which he was banned from doing so, he used the name David Matsinami, something like that, to get out of South Africa in secret. His activism continued while in prison, both inside its walls and out. He was mentor to other prisoners and taught them about nonviolent resistance. He also sent notes to the outside world and was a consistent symbol for the anti-apartheid movement. He loved sports and even used them as part of his activism. He believed that sport has the power to change the world. It has the power to inspire, has the power to unite people in a way that little else does. It speaks to youth in language and they understand. Sport can create hope where once there was only despair. It is more powerful than government in breaking down racial barriers. He was released from prison in 1990 by President Frederick Willem de Klerk. The two now share a Nobel Prize. 2020 marks 30 years since his release from prison. He advocated for HIV/AIDS after one of his sons passed away from AIDS-related illness. Mandela's public announcement of his son's condition helped break the stigma of the disease in South Africa. The year he was elected president of South Africa, he was also the first year he voted in the election in 1994. He was 76 years old. And this is still the prison, outside the prison on Robben Island. And then we're taking you to the Botanical Gardens, which was really beautiful. Again, it's outside of Cape Town. and just walking up to one of its paths and one of the mountains above the gardens, and just some scenery in the gardens. And the animals are fairly tame. This is a guinea, which they would walk right up to me as I was filming them. Or the current term is videoing them. I'm old. I still film. And some of the flowers, Heidi took pictures of the flowers. So these are some of the flowers. And then they have a statue of Nelson Mandela in the gardens. Now this is going down toward the Cape of Good Hope, which is at the southern tip of South Africa. And penguins are everywhere down at, this is Boulder Beach. Penguins were all over the place. What was interesting is saw a shark swimming around right near where the penguins were. What is the average lifespan of an African penguin in the wild? Take your own guess. 10, 20, 30, or 50 years in the wild.
30.
Penguins, there's a couple more penguins at Boulder Beach. And here in the middle is a whole bunch of penguins on the rocks. And getting closer to them, there they all are. They're just all over the place. Average lifespan of African penguin in the wild is 20 years, 30 plus years if they're in captivity.
You did say in captivity, right?
What's that?
You did say in captivity, right?
Yeah, I did. You're right, Bill.
I guess 30.
We'll give you credit. And this is getting down the Cape of Good Hope. This is a lighthouse at the pinnacle of the Cape of Good Hope. And you can look down and see where the Indian Ocean meets the Atlantic Ocean, and it's a distinctive line. Now, unfortunately, when we were there that day, the clouds were all below where the lighthouse was. There was once in a while we could see a break in the clouds and see the ocean. But anyway, it's a pretty cool little walk up to the lighthouse. And coming back down from the Cape of Good Hope, you have baboons, and baboons are troublemakers. They'll get on your car, they'll break your aerial if you have a car aerial. So they tell you to not search or not to stop like that. The baboons, but of course cars were stopping.
So they drive like the British?
Yes, you're talking about the wrong side of the road.
Right, yeah.
We're the right side of the road. Yeah, they drive on the left side of the road, which was actually a big deal because I did not want to drive because I didn't want to be responsible for going on the right side of the road with the folks in the vehicle after all these years of driving. And this is back in Cape Town, taking a picture of Table Mountain at night. Now we're taking a cable car up to the top of Table Mountain. What's neat about this cable car, as you were going up the mountain, the floor of the cable car was spinning around very slowly, but going around so everybody could get a view, 360-degree view of the scenery as you're going up. And then there were some people that were aggressive enough to walk up instead of take the cable car. And this is taking a picture down from the cable car. And this is the view from up on Table Mountain, looking back down on the city. Actually, this is, we're not on the mountain yet. This is still from the cable car. And it's one of the 7 wonders of nature. And by the way, interesting fact, while we were in Durban, you see I have that brown Durban hat on. We were in Durban, down along the water, they had a line of folks selling stuff. And I bought this hat. And if you look at this hat, this is embroidered letters. They're embroidered in there and has like a leather-like little symbol here. Very, very nice hat. Now, when we asked how much it cost, if I put it in dollars and cents, it would be just under $3 is what I bought this hat for. You
Wow.
get a hat.
Wow.
You can't even buy a cheap one around here for that.
Hmm.
What's that?
You can't even buy a cheap one around here for that.
That's right. That's right. Now we're up on top of Table Mountain, looking down at the ocean, at the scenery.
Mm.
And still on Table Mountain, people just erect these little monuments of stone in this one particular place for no particular reason. They just make their own little monument. I guess when they go up there, they look up their monument. And of course, that's the diagram of Table Mountain. And that's where the cable car course comes in at the top of the mountain.
Jack, is that a result of a volcano?
That's looking off at, I would say so. I don't know that. I might have read that at the time. Looking, it's not, I'm reading what it says there. It's not saying that, but I believe that that's a true statement. We were told that.
Yeah, it was.
That's looking at Robben Island where Nelson Mandela was in prison. So that gives you an idea how far it was from Cape Town out to Robben Island.
Hmm.
And on our last day there, we went to a winery, Groot Constantia winery. Nice place. And that's just another, that's at the winery, just looking across the mountains, across the water at the mountains. And there you go about baboons. Beware of baboons, no picnics. As a matter of fact, where we saw the penguins, there was a sign up about look under your car for penguins before you pull out. So wild animals all over the place. As a matter of fact, we stayed at a house where monkeys could come through the window and get in your house and destroy stuff. So I had to beware of animals at all times. Then basically we left the next day and went back through England again, and didn't have as much time, but actually Naomi, who came with us, she and I went out to what you call it, Parliament,
Palace.
and then went on the big Ferris wheel across from Parliament before we took off from the airport. Hey Naomi, how are you?
Hi.
Hi.
Enjoying.
Good. And that's pretty much it. We flew through those 96 panels pretty quickly. Anybody have any comments or any questions?
How long a flight was it?
And how long of a flight? About 17 hours in the air. Because it is, of course, across the equator on basically close to the other side of the world. And it seemed like 17 hours in the air. It was pretty monotonous after a bit, but it was very much worth doing. And of course, this was for one of our daughter's wedding that we went there, and we were there for 2 weeks, and it was really beautiful. Enjoyed seeing all those animals and being on safaris and the scenery and around Cape Town. It was really one of the coolest places on earth. Naomi, since you were there, and let me put you on the spot, what did you think of the trip?
Well, it was a trip of a lifetime for me, and so memorable. But I was also impressed by your daughter and son-in-law's friends. They traveled very well. Most were well traveled, and they just were they teased each other about being astronauts, but they actually were graduate students, and some had their PhDs from Johns Hopkins astrophysics program,
Mm.
and they were just marvelous to travel with. But and then the family of your family and the groom's family just welcomed me like a family member. It was magnificent. It really, when we went to see everything about Nelson Mandela and where he was imprisoned, we almost felt we were on sacred ground because of all he had accomplished and who he was. And it was like a Christian experience without people being too churchy about it.
Mhm.
But it was, we saw a lot of London in 12 hours when we went there, and 6 hours on the way back. We saw Buckingham Palace in the real, in front of it on a Sunday morning when it was quiet. It was a highlight.
Very good,
And-
very good. And there was about 30 in our group, so it was a nice sized group also.
Mm.
And you
I
speak
had-
well, Naomi, of all the kids that were in the group, because they were all really nice and, like you said, well behaved. It was a fun trip, having a group that size, and really neat experience.
It's one of the continents I never made in all the travels I've done. I was within 2 days of going there back in 62.
Mhm.
I had my passport. I had all the shots that were required. I even had the plane reservation. And at the last minute, my boss decided he was going to go instead.
Oh.
So he and another engineer went. So I didn't get to make the trip. But when he came back and told me because that was right when our apartheid was really on, I'm sort of glad I didn't go, because he came back with some of the stories that of how difficult it was, that if a white guy would make eyes or talk to a black person, depending what part of the city you were in, you could be fined and put in jail. I mean, it was some weird stuff. And I don't understand that lifestyle. I don't understand how a group can do that, but it all came down to, as we are still fighting in this country, it was always a power. The whites were minorities and they were going to rule these people one way or another. And I give Mandela a lot of credit, because he put up with a lot and finally got the people united to overthrow that kind of government. But it's I've never had that feeling when I was in other parts of the world, whether even, and many places, I was the minority. I was in Japan, where I was the only white guy in the vicinity. I was in China, where I was the only, in Taiwan, the same in Singapore. I've been in meetings with virtually all kinds of races, but never felt the attitude as bad as was described in the early 60s in South Africa.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, right now there's been some unrest in South Africa. The former president, Jacob Zuma, was just imprisoned, and this is all over, more or less over COVID. They don't have the amount of vaccinations that we have, and they don't, also are short on a lot of food supplies. And once this Zuma guy was protesting with the people over all this, and he was imprisoned by the current courts, and then they started rioting, and there was civil unrest in South Africa. Now it's calmed down, I believe, in the last couple of weeks, but they still have their problems. But when we were there, everything seemed fine and harmonious wherever we were. But you're right, Bill. Like I said earlier, up to 1993, they had the apartheid, which was a separation of the classes.
Jack, what's
they-
their industry? Industries?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm thinking back on this. The one thing, of course, I think is tourism, because I believe they attract a lot of tourists. Mining is a big deal. Gold mining is a big deal.
Yeah.
And-
Well,
We
there's
also
big-
saw oil fields.
okay.
We flew
and there's
over
also a
some
lot
of
of
the oil.
farming too, right?
There's a lot of farming. You're right. We saw a lot of
But it's
farmland,
been-
especially when we traveled from the coast inland to the game reserve. We passed a lot of farmland. That's true. A lot of, like we saw in that one slide, farm animals just walking along the side of the road. They had lots of those types of animals. You're right about that. So yeah, I would go along with that. So,
We also passed some Zulu villages and some other villages on a long bus trip
right.
to Durban. And their schools were what we would call primitive, but excellent schools. And
Mhm.
they were boarding schools.
Is it like a British education system kind of?
Makeup wise of the white population, about 2/3 are 1/3 is English and 2/3 oh geez, I want to say, I'm getting a mental blank, I'm getting old, like Dutch
Mhm.
of their population. So yeah, I would say
Some
I would
Dutch system, maybe.
I would guess an English type. Well, I would guess an English type of system, or maybe the two are pretty much alike.
I know Pakistan has an English British system where grades maybe don't match what we have, and college is different and university is different. Just the way they structure their education system is British.
Mhm, mhm.
But even in the so-called out communities, education they have recognized is the way to progress.
Mhm.
So they are, wherever education is provided, the kids work hard to get what they can, because that's their escape ladder.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's kind of interesting. They I can remember we were where was it? It was both Presbyterian and Methodist. I've been in meetings where people have come back where the groups were supporting either a Methodist school or a Presbyterian school in various parts of Africa with the same thought, like you're doing in
Pakistan.
Pakistan.
Mm.
Education, you give these kids opportunities and they do well. And many of them go back then and become the professors, the teachers, the lawyers, the whatever, for the native people to help them improve their own system. So education is definitely important, and we tend to take it pretty for granted by comparison.
Yeah, I get that impression too, Bill, that countries like this, that the kids are much more into education, that they want to learn everything that they can learn. So no, I go along with that. The other
Now,
thought that I also had was, while we're in particularly Cape Town, we were walking through this shopping mall a lot, and everything, the commerce there looked and the businesses and everything looked pretty normal. It looked like a very big and vibrant city. That's just one of the impressions I got, that the city itself was really nice, but when you get out in the country, you do see a lot of shack-like buildings. So the city seemed prosperous and the countryside seemed pretty primitive.
Yeah, well, you could see that a lot depending where you are in Europe. and other parts of the world I've been to, the cities are always much more advanced than some of the country villages. But I saw that on this last storm they had in Europe, some of those old country buildings didn't do very well when the waters came. They got that
Yeah.
one town literally almost got washed away.
Yeah,
But
when
then I think-
Germany got particularly hit.
Yeah, but then I think of here when we had a couple of major storms, even outside of Baltimore, forget the name of the town, they had the same thing happen. They had a flash flood, and parts of downtown that hadn't been flooded before were literally washed out, and it took them a couple of years to recover. So it happens everywhere. It's not only the so-called non-developed parts of the world. It's
Oh, yeah.
been interesting.
Well, now living in Houston, I remember the Army Corps of Engineers guy on television talking about the flooding in Houston. And he said, look, if you're going to pave it, there's no place for water to go.
Right.
So more pavement you put in, the worse it's going to get. So
And we use that,
progress is not always progress.
well, that nasty term, we're gonna take this nice pristine farmland and we're gonna develop it.
Yeah.
Oh, that means you're gonna pave it over and put buildings on it.
Yeah. It changes everything. Yeah.
Yes, it does.
But
Hey,
one,
Jack, it was very interesting. I really appreciated that. I applaud your research into putting all that stuff together, and
Oh, my.
particularly the photography. Whoever your photographer was, I guess she left. But
I did mention that was Heidi.
Heidi.
She did the pictures and I did the video.
So Jack, the official title of it is Republic of South Africa?
Yes, Republic of South Africa would be correct. That's
See that a
correct.
lot on the Olympic banners the
Yeah.
people are
Yeah.
wearing, RSA.
Mhm.
oh, you mentioned about the sports being a unifier.
Yeah,
One of the slides.
that's
I
Nelson
remember-
Mandela was big on that. Yes.
Mandela was big in pushing the what do they call them? The Springboks, the South African rugby football team,
Hmm.
and got them into the world class. And the year that they won was a year or so after Mandela was nominated or elected. And that was the unifying thing that got the country together. They had something to support.
Mm.
And then when he had a couple of the black players came on, it took a while for the black players to be assimilated into the team, but it gave everybody someone to root for. And that was he was a pretty classic guy in his big picture look at things. It was not, he saw things that the rest of us had to learn to see. Pretty good guy.
Mhm.
Well, thanks, Jack. This was
Sure.
very informative.
Very
I
interesting.
appreciate that.
Very good. Okay, very good. It's good seeing y'all.
All right, now,
I had an interruption a little earlier there. Heidi's on her way to church.
Yeah.
She has to
Are
fill in
you-
in the nursery.
Uh,
So it's good having you all here, and we'll get a lot of people viewing this on the recording too, being recorded. So
I would
Good
hope
talk.
so, yeah.
good talking to you, and then we'll be at it next week then.
Yep, and next week ought to be interesting. I hope you all tune in. That's not many people get inside the mansion, and I've not seen what she's gonna do, so I'll be watching with the rest of you. So it'll be interesting.